The slap echoed through the diner like a gunshot. Rosie's head snapped to the side. She stumbled, caught herself on the counter, blood at the corner of her mouth. Sheriff Wade Collins stood over her, uniform crisp, badge gleaming, hands still raised. "That's discipline," he said, "for a woman who doesn't know her place." 40 people watched. No one moved, no one spoke, except one man, an old man at the counter, gray hair pulled back, leather jacket, 68 years old but built like a tank. Marcus Steele Donovan stood up, slowly, deliberately, and stepped between the sheriff and the woman. "The lady asked you to leave," Steele said, voice quiet, calm, dangerous. Collins looked at him, saw the Hell's Angels tattoo on his forearm, saw something in those cold blue eyes that made him hesitate. "You don't know who you're dealing with, old man," Collins said. Steele didn't blink. "And you don't know who you're threatening." The air went electric, violence humming just beneath the surface. And in that moment, Marcus Steele Donovan made a choice. The choice that would change everything. The desert sun beat down on Dustville, Arizona like it had something to prove. Heat waves shimmered off the asphalt of Route 47, making the whole town look like it was underwater. Population 3,847. One main street, 3 bars, 2 churches, and one diner that served the best coffee for 60 miles in any direction. Marcus Donovan Steele, to anyone who knew him, sat in his garage with a wrench in one hand and the past in the other. The wrench belonged to a 1998 Harley-Davidson Road King, chrome gleaming even in the shadows. Engine parts spread across a clean work mat like pieces of a puzzle only he knew how to solve. 40 years of riding. 40 years of knowing these machines better than he knew most people. The past, that was harder to hold. It sat in a silver frame on his workbench, a photograph. A woman with dark hair and a smile that could light up a room even in a frozen moment. Linda, his wife. Dead 8 years now, cancer took her slow. Slow enough that he'd had time to say goodbye. Slow enough that he should have been there. Should have. Steele set down the wrench, picked up the frame, ran his thumb across the glass like he'd done 1,000 times before. Like it might bring her back if he just kept trying. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the empty garage. The same words, every day for 8 years. They never felt like enough. His phone sat on the bench beside a coffee mug gone cold. He looked at it, looked at the contact labeled Kat, his daughter, Catherine Marie Donovan. 38 years old now, a surgeon in Seattle, successful, strong, everything he'd ever wanted for her, everything except a father. Steele picked up the phone, scrolled to her name. His thumb hovered over the call button. Quote call number 783. That's how many times he'd called in 15 years. How many times he'd heard the phone ring and ring and ring until voicemail picked up. He'd stopped leaving messages after the first 100. What was there left to say that he hadn't already said, "I'm sorry, I love you, please talk to me"? He pressed the button anyway. Because that's what you do when you've failed the people you love. You keep trying, even when there's no hope left. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Voicemail. "You've reached Dr. Catherine Donovan. I can't take your call right now. Leave a message." Steele listened to her voice. Professional, distant. Nothing like the little girl who used to run to him when he came home from club business. Nothing like the teenager who'd loved riding on the back of his bike, arms wrapped tight around his waist, laughing into the wind. The beep sounded. He opened his mouth, closed it. What could he possibly say that would make a difference? He hung up without speaking. Call 783. Like all the others. Steele set the phone down and turned back to the Harley. Work was easier than memory. Metal and oil didn't judge you, didn't look at you with disappointment in their eyes, didn't cut you out of their lives because you'd chosen wrong too many times. His hands moved automatically. Years of muscle memory, tightening bolts, checking tolerances, the rhythm of it almost meditative, almost enough to quiet the voice in his head that never stopped whispering the same question. What if you'd stayed 15 years ago, the hospital? The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. That particular sound hospitals have, the sound of waiting, of machines keeping people alive, of time running out. Steele had walked into Linda's room at St. Mary's Medical Center in Las Vegas, smelling like whiskey and motor oil. 3 in the morning. The club had been celebrating another successful run, another deal closed, another night of brotherhood and belonging. His phone had 17 missed calls. Linda was awake. Barely. The cancer had eaten through her until there was nothing left but skin and bone and those eyes. God, those eyes. Still beautiful. Still trying to smile when she saw him. Marcus, she'd whispered. Not Steele. Never Steele. To Linda, he'd always been Marcus, the man behind the leather and the reputation. Hey, baby, he'd said, taking her hand. So small, so fragile. When had she gotten so fragile? Where's Kat? His daughter had been standing in the corner, 23 years old, arms crossed, face hard. She'd been there for 6 hours while Linda slipped in and out of consciousness. 6 hours. He'd been at the clubhouse, celebrating. Catherine, Linda had said, come here, sweetheart. Kat had moved to the bedside, hadn't looked at Steele, hadn't acknowledged him at all except for the way her shoulders tensed when he stepped closer. Linda had taken both their hands, brought them together, her last act of trying to hold the family whole. Promise me, she'd whispered. Promise me you'll take care of each other. Steele had nodded. I promise. Kat had said nothing. Linda died 4 hours later, surrounded by beeping machines and the smell of disinfectant and a husband who reeked of whiskey. Steele had been holding her hand when she went. At least he'd been there for that. Kat had looked at him across their mother's body. Her face had been a mask. No tears. Not yet. Just ice. Get out, she'd said. Catherine, get out. Each word separate. Final. You weren't here. For months you weren't here. She needed you and you were with your club. Your brothers. She spat the word like poison. Well, congratulations. They're all you have now. That's not fair. Fair, Kat's voice had risen. A nurse had appeared in the doorway concerned. You want to talk about fair? Mom spent 6 months dying and you were here maybe 6 times. 6 times, Dad. I counted. I was here every single day. Every single day. And you showed up when it was convenient, between runs and parties and whatever the hell else was more important than your wife dying. I was working, son. You were choosing. Every time you put on that vest and walked out the door, you were choosing them over us, over her, over me. Steele had reached for her. Catherine, please. She'd step on back. Don't touch me. Don't call me. Don't try to be my father now that she's gone. You gave up that right when you weren't man enough to be her husband. And she'd walked out. The funeral had been 3 days later. Kat had made all the arrangements, picked the casket, chosen the flowers, written the obituary, done everything a daughter shouldn't have to do alone. Steele had tried to help. She'd told him his money was good, but his presence wasn't wanted. He'd gone anyway, stood in the back of the church in his Hell's Angels vest, full colors, because he didn't know how else to be. The club had shown up, 50 bikers in leather and chrome, a show of respect for their president's loss. Kat had looked at them like an invading army. After the service, as they'd lowered Linda into the ground, Steele had approached his daughter. One last try. Catherine, we need to talk. No, we don't. No, we don't. She'd turned to face him. Those eyes, Linda's eyes, full of a pain he'd caused. I have nothing to say to you. I never want to see you again. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have a father anymore. You don't mean that. I mean every word. Stay away from me. If you ever loved Mom, if you ever loved me, you'll respect this one thing. Stay away. And she'd walked to her car and driven out of his life. That had been 15 years ago. He'd called every week since then. She'd never answered. Not once. Present day. The garage. Steele wiped his hands on a rag and looked at the photograph of Linda again. I'm trying the baby, he said to the empty room. I know it's not enough. It'll never be enough, but I'm trying. The Harley sat on its stand half assembled. Beautiful machine. Powerful. Dangerous if you didn't respect it. Steele understood that, respected that. Machines were simple. You took care of them, they took care of you. People were harder. He'd learned that too late. The clock on the wall read 6:45 in the morning. Early but not for Steele. Old habits from the Marines. Up before dawn. 20 years since Desert Storm, and his body still woke him at 0500 like clockwork. He grabbed his leather jacket, plain black. No colors. He'd left the Hells Angels 6 years ago and headed for his truck, a 2010 Ford F-15. Ooh, nothing fancy, just reliable. That's all he needed these days. The drive to Rosie's Diner took 7 minutes. Steele knew because he'd timed it. Same route every morning. Right on Baker Street, left on Main. Park in the third spot from the corner where the asphalt wasn't cracked. Routine was armor. Do the same thing every day and you couldn't mess it up. He pushed through the diner's glass door at exactly 6:52. The bell above the door chimed. Bright, cheerful, like every morning in every small-town diner in America. The smell hit him first. Coffee, fresh brewed, bacon on the grill, toast. The good smells, the ones that said safety and normalcy and a world that made sense. The diner was classic Americana. Red vinyl booths, black and white checkered floor. A jukebox in the corner, playing Patsy Cline low enough to be background music. Pictures on the walls of Dustville in the 50s and 60s, before the mine closed, before half the town moved away. When this place had been something more than a speed trap on the way to somewhere else. 3 customers at this hour. Old Hank Morrison at the counter reading the newspaper like he did every morning. A trucker in the corner booth halfway through a stack of pancakes. And Mrs. Henderson by the window sipping tea and watching the sunrise paint the desert pink and gold. Steele took his usual spot at the counter. Third stool from the left. Same seat every morning for 3 months now. Morning, Mr. Donovan. Her voice, Steele looked up and felt something catch in his chest. Same thing every morning. Same moment of forgetting where he was. When he was. Because for just a second, standing there with a coffee pot in one hand and that smile on her face, she could have been Linda. Not identical, not really, but close enough that it hurt. Rose Margaret Hartwell. Rosie to everyone in Dustville. 47 years old. Hair the color of autumn leaves pulled back in a ponytail that showed the silver starting to thread through. Green eyes, freckles across her nose that she'd probably hated as a teenager but wore well now. Laugh lines at the corners of her mouth. And that smile. Christ, that smile. Morning, Rosie, Steele said. His voice came out rougher than he meant it to. Coffee black, no sugar. She already knew, had known since the second morning he'd come in. Good waitress. Good memory. Please. She poured. The coffee steamed in the white ceramic mug. Steele wrapped his hands around it. Warm, solid, real. You want the usual eggs over easy wheat toast bacon crispy. That'd be perfect, thank you. You got it. She turned to call the order through the kitchen window, and Steele watched her go. Not in a romantic way. He was past that. Past relationships and complications and letting anyone close enough to hurt. But he watched because she reminded him of everything he'd lost. Everything he'd thrown away for the club. For the brotherhood. For a sense of belonging that had cost him the only belonging that mattered. Family. Rosie came back with the coffee pot for a top-up he didn't need. She did that sometimes. Found reasons to circle back. Like she sensed he needed the company, even if he never said more than a dozen words. How's the bike coming? She asked. Good. Should have her purring by tomorrow. Customer job. No, just something to do. She nodded, understood. Small-town wisdom, sometimes a man needed something to do with his hands to keep his mind quiet. You were in early this morning, she said. I saw your truck at the garage when I drove past at 5:30. Couldn't sleep. Bad dreams. Steele looked at her. Really looked. She had the kind of face that had seen trouble and survived it. The kind that knew what nightmares looked like because she'd had her own. Something like that, he said. Yeah. Rosie leaned against the counter. The diner was quiet enough for conversation. I get those too. Nights when Clayton's death just sits on me. Like I can't breathe around it. Clayton, her husband, dead 6 years. Steele knew that much. Picked up from listening to conversations in town. Car accident. Lost control on Route 47. Went off the cliff near Miller's Point. Killed instantly. That's what people said. But Steele had lived long enough to know that the official story wasn't always the true story. I'm sorry, he said, inadequate words. He knew that. Said them anyway. It gets easier, Rosie said. That's what people tell you. Time heals all wounds and all that, and maybe it's true. The sharp edges wear down. You learn to live around the hole instead of falling into it every day. She looked at him. You lost someone too. I can tell. Steele's hand went to the inside pocket of his jacket. The one where he kept Linda's handkerchief. Blue silk. She'd carried it on their wedding day. He'd found it in her drawer after she died, and he'd carried it every day since. My wow, he said. 8 years ago. I'm sorry. Don't be, I didn't earn mourning her. Not like you earned mourning your husband. Rosie frowned. That's a strange thing to say. It's a true thing. Before she could respond, the kitchen bell dinged. Food up. Rosie brought his plate. Eggs, perfect. Toast golden. Bacon exactly how he liked it. Enjoy, she said, and moved on to refill Hank's coffee. Steele ate slowly. Tasted nothing. Hadn't tasted food properly in 8 years. Eating was just fuel. Something you did to keep the machine running. The diner filled up gradually. By 7:15, most of the counter seats were taken. Regulars, people who'd lived in Dustville their whole lives. They nodded to Steele. He nodded back. That was the extent of it. He'd been careful since moving here, kept his head down, didn't tell anyone about his past. No Hell's Angels stories, no war stories, just the old guy who fixed motorcycles and kept to himself. That's how he wanted it. At 7:30, the bell above the door chimed again. Steele glanced up from his coffee. Habit. Old instincts. Always know who's coming in the door. Three men in deputy uniforms. Dustville Sheriff's Department. They came in loud, laughing too hard at something that probably wasn't funny, taking up space like they owned it. The one in front was big, 6'3", maybe 250, gut hanging over his belt. Garrett Bulldog Pierce, according to his name tag. He had the look of a man who'd peaked in high school football and spent the next 25 years trying to find that feeling again. The other two were younger, trying too hard, laughing at Bulldog's jokes because he outranked them. They took the corner booth, the one the trucker had just vacated. Rosie approached with the coffee pot and her professional smile. The one that wasn't quite real, Steele noticed. He'd gotten good at reading her in 3 months, knew the difference between her genuine smile and the one she used for difficult customers. Morning, gentlemen, she said. Coffee? Hell yeah, Bulldog said. Too loud. And make it strong, Rosie. We've been up all night. Rough shift. You know how it is, keeping the good people of Dustville safe from the bad guys. He laughed. The others joined in. Rosie poured. What can I get you to eat? What do you recommend? Bulldog's eyes traveled over her in a way that made Steele's jaw tighten. You always know what I like. The breakfast special is good. Pancakes, eggs, sausage. I want something special, something that ain't on the menu. The other deputies laughed again. Steele's hand tightened on his coffee mug. Rosie's smile went rigid. I'll give you boys a minute to look over the menu. She turned to go. Bulldog reached out and grabbed her wrist. Now hold on, Rosie. Don't run off. We're just being friendly. Let go of my arm, Garrett. Come on, don't be like that. We're just having a little fun. Steele set down his coffee mug, carefully, quietly. Rosie pulled her arm free, professional, practiced. Like this wasn't the first time. I'll be back in a minute to take your order, she said and walked away. Bulldog called after her. That's what I like. A woman who plays hard to get. More laughter. Steele watched Rosie go behind the counter, saw her hands shake slightly as she set down the coffee pot, saw her take a breath, saw her smooth down her apron and put the smile back on. The smile that didn't reach her eyes. Something cold settled in Steele's gut, something old and familiar. The feeling that came before action, before consequences. He turned back to his breakfast, ate mechanically, but part of him stayed aware of the corner booth, the loud voices, the way Rosie found reasons to have the other waitress young girl, maybe 20, handle that table. Steele knew avoidance when he saw it, knew fear too. At 8 o'clock, he paid his bill, left a 20 for an $8 breakfast, same as always. Rosie had stopped arguing with him about it after the first week. See you tomorrow, Mr. Donovan, she said. Tomorrow, he confirmed. He walked out into the Arizona morning. He'd already building, would hit 110 by afternoon. Steele didn't mind. He'd been in the real desert. Kuwait, Saudi. This was nothing. His truck sat where he'd left it. He climbed in, started the engine, sat there for a moment with the AC running. Through the diner window, he could see Rosie refilling coffee, moving from table to table. That smile in place, that armor. Steele recognized it because he wore the same thing. Different material, same purpose. Keep the world at arm's length. Don't let them see the damage. Don't let them close enough to hurt you again. He put the truck in gear and drove the 7 minutes back to his garage. Work waited. The Harley. Clean, simple problems with clean, simple solutions. Not like people. Not like the ache in his chest when he looked at a photograph. Not like 783 unanswered phone calls. That afternoon, the dusty boot. Steele didn't drink much anymore. A beer now and then, never hard liquor. He'd seen too many men drown in bottles and he refused to be one of them. But information lived in bars, always had. So once a week he'd stop in at the Dusty Boot, nurse a beer. Listen, the place was dark even in the middle of the day. Neon beer signs providing most of the light. Pool table in the back. 3 old-timers at the bar watching a baseball game on a TV from 1995. Hank Morrison sat at his usual spot, 72 years old, owned the bar for 40 years, served in the Army during the Cold War, stationed in Germany. Never saw combat, but wore the service like a badge anyway. Good man, salt of the earth, the kind you could trust. Steele, Hank said as he approached. Don't usually see you on a Wednesday. Felt like a change of pace. Steele took a stool two down from Hank, space between them. Respectful. Beer, please. Hank poured from the tap, set it down, refused Steele's money with a wave. On the house. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Baseball game droned on. Somebody won, somebody lost. Steele didn't care about either. Question for you, Steele said eventually. Shoot. Rosie Hartwell, what do you know about her? Hank looked at him, one eyebrow raised. Rosie, you interested? Not like that, just curious? Uh-huh. Hank didn't sound convinced, but he answered anyway. Good woman, runs that diner better than her daddy did. Works hard, takes care of her people. Lost her husband about 6 years back. Clayton, you know about that? Some. Car accident, right? Hank's expression shifted. Something darker. That's what they said. But Clayton was the best driver I ever knew. Grew up on these roads. Knew every curve, every inch of pavement. He didn't lose control of his car. Not on a road he'd driven 1,000 times. Steele took a slow sip of beer. What do you think happened? I think Clayton saw something he shouldn't have. I think he was going to talk about it. And I think someone made sure he didn't get the chance. Someone like who? Hank looked at the baseball game. Didn't answer for a long moment. When he did, his voice was low. Sheriff Collins. The name hung in the air. Steele had seen the sheriff around town. Older guy, late 50s, big, carried himself like he owned the place. Not unusual for a small town cop with 14 years in the job. That's a serious accusation, Steele said. I know. That's why I've never said it out loud except to you right now. Can't prove it. But I knew Clayton. Knew him since he was a boy. He was an electrician. Good one. Did work all over town, including the sheriff's station. Rewired the whole building about 6.5 years ago. And 1 week after that job was finished, his car went off Miller's Point. No skid marks. No sign he tried to brake. Like he was unconscious before the car even left the road. Hank finally looked at Steele. I asked questions. Too many questions. My truck got vandalized. Windows broken. Slashed tires. I got the message. Shut up or bad things happen. Steele processed this. And Rosie? Rosie knows. I think that's why she won't sell the diner. Collins has been trying to buy it for years. Offers more than it's worth. But she won't budge. It's all she has left of Clayton. That and her stubborn pride. Collins gives her trouble. His boys do. Deputies. Especially Bulldog Pierce. He's got a thing for her. Won't take no for an answer. Nothing illegal. Nothing she can report. Just persistent. Wearing her down. The cold feeling in Steele's gut settled deeper. She got family, he asked. Someone looking out for her. No, Clayton was it. Never had kids. Her parents passed years ago. She's alone. Hank studied Steele's face. Why the interest? You sure this ain't personal? It's not romantic if that's what you're asking. Then what is it? Steele turned the beer bottle in his hands. How to explain how to tell this man that looking at Rosie Hartwell hurt because she smiled like a ghost. That protecting her felt like maybe possibly he could make up for one of the 1,000 failures that haunted his sleep. Let's just say I owe a debt, Steele said finally, and I'm trying to pay it. Hank nodded slowly. Debt to who? But Steele didn't answer, just finished his beer and left a 20 on the bar. Outside, the Arizona sun was brutal. Steele stood in the parking lot and looked down the street toward Rosie's diner, 2 blocks away, close enough to walk. He thought about Rosie's smile, the real one and the fake one. Thought about Clayton Hartwell. Good man. Good driver. Dead in a convenient accident. Thought about Sheriff Collins and his deputies and the way power worked in small towns when no one was watching. His phone buzzed in his pocket, a reminder he'd set, weekly, every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. Call Cat 783. Why not make it 784? He pulled out the phone, looked at her name, pressed the button. Ring, 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 voicemail. You've reached Dr. Catherine Donovan. He hung up. Maybe next week. Maybe never. Steele climbed in his truck and drove home to his empty garage and his half-finished Harley and the photograph of a woman who'd loved him despite everything he'd done wrong. 3 days later, morning, Rosie's Diner, 6:52. Steele pushed through the door, same as always, except it wasn't the same. The diner was more crowded than usual. Saturday morning, families, kids, the weekend breakfast crowd. Steele took his usual seat at the counter. Rosie appeared with a coffee pot in that smile, the real one this time. "Morning, Mr. Donovan." "Morning, Rosie," she poured. He wrapped his hands around the mug, warmth. "Busy today," he observed. "Summer weekends. People drive through on their way to Phoenix. We're the halfway point. Good place to stop and stretch." She pulled out her order pad. "Usual, please." She started to turn away, stopped, looked at him with something new in her expression. Hesitation, like she wanted to say something but wasn't sure she should. "What is it?" Steele asked. "Can I ask you something and you can tell me it's none of my business?" "Go ahead." "That tattoo on your arm, the one I see when you roll up your sleeves. That's Hell's Angels, isn't it?" Steele went still. "Yes. You were in the club. Long time ago. But not anymore." "Not for 6 years." Rosie nodded, processing. "That why you came to Dustville to get away from that life?" "Something like that." "Must have been hard. Leaving. Harder staying." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded again. "Your secret's safe with me, Mr. Donovan." "Steele. Call me Steele." "Okay, Steele." She smiled, softer this time. "I'll get your order in." She walked away and Steele sat with the weight of being known, even partially, even just the surface. It should have felt dangerous, exposure, but somehow it didn't. The diner hummed with conversation, families eating breakfast, kids arguing over pancakes. Normal, safe. Everything Steele had given up when he'd put on that vest 40 years ago. At 7:15, the bell above the door chimed. Steele looked up automatically, and everything changed. Sheriff Wade Tucker Collins walked in. 56 years old, 6 feet tall, 220 pounds, uniform crisp, badge polished, gun on his hip. Behind him, 3 deputies, including Bulldog Pierce. The diner's volume dropped, just slightly. The way conversations dim when authority enters a room. Collins surveyed the space like he owned it, and in a way he did. Small-town sheriff for 14 years, elected 4 times, ran unopposed the last 2 elections. Power, real and unchallenged. His eyes found Rosie behind the counter. Locked on, Steele watched, saw Rosie's shoulders tense, saw her put on the professional smile. Collins walked straight to the counter, to the seat right next to Steele. "Morning, Rosie," Collins said, voice loud enough to carry, friendly, but with an edge underneath. "Coffee when you get a chance." "Morning, Sheriff. I'll be right with you." Collins settled onto the stool, adjusted his gun belt, looked around the diner, nodded to a few people, performed the role of protector and servant. Steele kept his eyes on his coffee. "You're new in town," Collins said. It took Steele a second to realize the sheriff was talking to him. "Been here 3 months," Steele said. "That's new for Dustville. Most folks here, their families go back generations." Collins smiled. Politicians smile. "I'm Sheriff Collins. I like to know everyone in my town." "Marcus Donovan." "What brings you to Dustville, Mr. Donovan?" "Quiet." Collins laughed. "Well, you came to the right place for that. What do you do?" "Fix motorcycles." "Is that right? We could use a good mechanic. Charlie's garage closed last year. Heart attack took Charlie. His son didn't want the business." Collins leaned in slightly. "You planning to stay?" "Haven't decided." "Well, I hope you do. Always good to have new blood in town. Just make sure you're the right kind of blood, if you know what I mean." Steele looked at him then, really looked. Saw the smile that didn't reach the eyes. Saw the casual threat wrapped in friendly words. "I keep to myself," Steele said. "Don't cause trouble." "Good, good." Collins clapped him on the shoulder. "That's what I like to hear." Rosie appeared with the coffee pot, poured for Collins, avoided eye contact. "Rosie," Collins said, "how many times do I have to tell you I want to buy this place? Name your price. I'll pay it." "It's not for sale, Sheriff." "Everything's for sale for the right price." "Not this," Collins' smile tightened. "Your daddy left you this diner. Good man, your daddy. But he's gone now, and you're running yourself ragged trying to keep it going. Sell to me, I'll take good care of it. You can retire. Go somewhere nice." "I appreciate the offer. The answer's still no." "Rosie, is there something I can get you for breakfast, Sheriff?" The temperature in the diner dropped 10 degrees. Collins stared at her, the friendly mask slipping. Just for a second, long enough to see what was underneath. Control, possession, anger at being denied. "Yeah," he said finally. "I'll have the special. And make sure it's hot this time. Last week my eggs were cold. I'll tell the cook. Rosie walked away, back straight. Head high, Collins watched her go, then turned to his deputies. Can you believe that woman's stubborn as a mule, just like her husband? Bulldog Pierce laughed. Clayton was a pain in the ass too. Was indeed, right up until he wasn't. They laughed again. Inside joke, dark humor. Steele's jaw clenched. He wanted to say something. Wanted to turn and grab Collins by his perfectly pressed collar and demand to knowing what really happened to Clayton Hartwell. But he didn't, because he'd learned patience, learned to wait, learned that sometimes the right move was no move at all. Not yet. The diner filled up more. The weekend crowd in full swing now. Rosie and the young waitress, her name tag said Amy, moved between tables. Efficient, professional. Collins and his deputies took a booth, the best one by the window, the one a family with 3 kids had been about to sit down at. The father had started to say something. Collins had just looked at him. The family found another table. That's how power worked. Steele ate his breakfast, tasted nothing, watched everything. Watched Rosie avoid Collins's booth, watched Amy deliver their food, watched the way Collins's eyes followed Rosie every time she passed. Predator tracking prey. At 8:30, Collins stood up, threw 2 20s on the table. More than enough for the bill, a show of generosity. He stopped by the counter on his way out. Rosie was there ringing up another customer. Think about my offer, Rosie, he said. I'm a patient man, but patience has limits. Have a good day, Sheriff. Collins leaned closer, lowered his voice, but not low enough that Steele couldn't hear. Clayton thought he was smart too. Look where that got him. Then he walked out, deputies following, the bell chiming cheerfully as the door closed. The diner was silent for 5 seconds. Then conversations resumed, carefully, quietly at first, building back up to normal. But the tension remained. Steele looked at Rosie, saw her hands gripping the counter, knuckles white, that professional smile locked in place. She caught him looking. Their eyes met. In that moment, Steele saw something he recognized, something he knew intimately. Fear. Not the jumping at shadows kind, the deeper kind, the kind that lived in your bones because you knew exactly what someone was capable of and exactly how powerless you were to stop it. Rosie looked away first, went back to work, because that's what you did. You kept going. You didn't let them see they'd gotten to you. Steele stood up, left his usual 20, walked to the door, stopped, turned back. Rosie was wiping down the counter, not looking at him. Rosie, he said. She looked up. If you ever need anything, I mean anything, you call me, Mr. Donovan, Steele, and I mean it, anything. She studied his face, weighing, deciding if she could trust him. Finally, she nodded. Okay, thank you. He walked out into the bright morning, but something had shifted. Something had been set in motion. He just didn't know what yet. That night, Steele's garage. The Harley was done, purring like a dream. Steele had test-ridden her, 90 miles through the desert. Wind and road and the kind of freedom that came from being alone with a good machine. It should have cleared his head. It didn't. He sat in the garage with all the lights off, except one lamp. In his hand, a photograph. Not Linda this time. This one had been in his wallet for 30 years. Creased, worn, 3 men in desert camouflage. Kuwait, 1991. Steele on the left, 28 years old. Corporal, Marine Corps. Jake Mitchell in the middle. Best friend, brother in everything but blood. And on the right, a third man, Clayton Hartwell, Jake's little brother, just 18, fresh out of boot camp. Steele hadn't thought about this photo in years, hadn't let himself. But today, after hearing Hank's story, after seeing Rosie's fear, he'd pulled it out. Jake had died in 1992. Made it through Desert Storm without a scratch. Came home and put a gun in his mouth 6 months later. PTSD, they hadn't known how to treat. Demons, they hadn't known how to fight. Steele had found him, had been the one to call the ambulance. The family had held Jake's mother while she screamed. At the funeral, Clayton had found him, just 19 years old, eyes red from crying. Jake talked about you, Clayton's had said. Said you saved his life in Kuwait. He saved mine first. He wanted me to tell you something, in case he didn't make it. Clayton had pulled out a piece of paper, wrinkled, tear-stained. He wrote this a week before Steele had read it. Steele, if you're reading this, I didn't make it. The war followed me home and I couldn't fight it anymore. I'm sorry. Take care of Clayton for me. He's a good kid, smart, kind, everything I'm not. Watch out for him. Promise me, Steele had promised. Standing there at Jake Mitchell's grave, he'd looked Clayton in the eye and said the words, "I'll watch out for you, whatever you need, I promise." Clayton had nodded, believed him, and then Steele had gone back to the Hells Angels, back to the club, back to a life of runs and parties and playing outlaw. He'd sent Clayton money a few times, Christmas cards, but watch out for him. Actually be there, no. He'd forgotten, or chosen to forget. Same thing, really. And now Clayton Hartwell was dead. Run off the road by a corrupt sheriff because he'd seen too much. And his widow was alone, vulnerable, afraid, because Steele had broken a promise. Again. He set down the photograph, picked up his phone, pulled up a contact he hadn't used in 2 years. James Wrench Torres, vice president of the Hells Angels Nevada chapter. Steele's best friend in the club. The man who'd taken over when Steele retired. The phone rang 3 times. Steele, Wrench's voice, surprised. "That really you?" "Yeah, it's me. Been a while, brother. 2 years. About that. You calling for a reason or just to catch up?" "I need information." "Figured. What kind?" "A sheriff in Arizona. Name's Wade Tucker Collins. Dustville. I need to know everything about him." Silence on the other end. "Then you in trouble?" "Not yet, but I might be soon." "Does this have something to do with why you left?" Steele thought about Linda, about Kat, about promises broken and years wasted. "No, this is something new, something I have to do." "All right, I'll dig. Give me 48 hours. "Thanks, Wrench." "Steele, you need backup, you call. I don't care that you retired. Once a brother, always a brother." "I know, but this is something I have to handle myself." "Your funeral." They hung up. Steele sat in the dark garage with the ghosts of his past. Jake Mitchell, dead because the war wouldn't let him go. Clayton Hartwell, dead because he'd stood up to corruption. Linda, dead because cancer didn't care about second chances. And Kat, not dead, but lost to him, which somehow felt worse. He'd failed them all. But maybe he didn't have to fail Rosie. Maybe one right thing could start to balance the scales. It was a foolish thought. He knew that. No amount of good deeds could erase the bad, couldn't bring back the dead, couldn't repair what he'd broken. But it was all he had. So it would have to be enough. Monday morning, 6:45. Steele walked into Rosie's diner at exactly 6:52, same as always. The bell chimed. Rosie looked up from behind the counter, smiled when she saw him, the real smile. "Morning, Steele?" "Morning, Rosie." She poured his coffee without asking, set it down in front of him. "Usual?" she asked. "Please." She turned to call the order to the kitchen, and that's when the bell chimed again. Sheriff Wade Collins, Deputy Bulldog Pierce, 2 other deputies. Early for them. They usually came in around 7:30. Collins scanned the diner, eyes landing on Rosie, then on Steele. A flicker of something. Recognition, maybe. Evaluation. He walked to the counter, sat 2 stools down from Steele. Close, but not next to him. A statement. "Morning, Rosie," Collins said, loud, cheerful, public persona in place. "Morning, Sheriff." Rosie's voice was steady, professional. "Coffee. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something. You got a minute?" "I'm working, Sheriff." "This won't take long. Come on, step outside with me." "If you have something to say, you can say it here." Collins' smile tightened. "It's private business, Rosie." "Then make an appointment. I'm not discussing private business during working hours." The diner was quiet now, everyone listening, pretending not to. Collins stood up, moved closer to Rosie, crowding her space. "You're making this difficult," he said. Voice lower now, harder. "I'm trying to be nice, trying to give you a fair offer for this place, but you keep refusing to listen. Because I'm not selling. Your husband is dead, Rosie. This place is falling apart. You can barely keep the lights on. Take my offer. Start fresh somewhere else." "No." "No," Collins leaned against the counter. "You think you have a choice here? In America, I do. In Dustville, you don't. Not when I'm the one asking." Rosie set down the coffee pot, looked Collins in the eye. "Get out of my diner." Collins laughed. "Excuse me. You heard me. If you're not here to eat, get out. This is my property. I'm asking you to leave." The diner held its breath. Collins's face changed. The friendly sheriff mask cracked. What showed through was uglier. "Listen here, you stubborn bitch." Steele stood up. Not fast, not threatening, just stood, put himself between Collins and Rosie. The lady asked you to leave, Steele said. Voice quiet, calm. The kind of calm that came before violence. Collins turned, looked up at Steele. 6 inches of height difference, 50 pounds of muscle. This doesn't concern you, old man. She asked you to leave. That concerns anyone with ears. You don't want to do this. Do what? Stand up. I'm just trying to drink my coffee. Hard to do with all the yelling. Bulldog Pierce moved forward, hand on his gun. Step back, Grandpa. Steele didn't move. Didn't look at Bulldog. Kept his eyes on Collins. I'm going to ask you one more time, Collins said. Step aside. Or what? Or I'll arrest you for obstruction. For standing in a diner. For interfering with official business. Didn't sound like official business. Sounded like harassment. Collins's face flushed red. You don't know who you're dealing with. And you don't know who you're threatening. They stood there, 2 feet apart, tension thick enough to cut, the entire diner frozen. Then Collins smiled, cold, mean. You're right, I don't know you, but I will. He stepped back, adjusted his belt. This isn't over, Rosie. Think about what I said. He turned to leave, stopped, turned back, and before anyone could react, before Steele could move, Collins's hands shot out. The slap echoed through the diner like a gunshot. Rosie's head snapped to the side. She stumbled, caught herself on the counter, hand going to her face, shock and pain and disbelief. The room erupted. Customers standing, shouting, Bulldog and the other deputies moving between Collins and the crowd. And Steele felt everything slow down, felt the rage that he'd spent 6 years learning to control surge up like a tsunami, felt his hands ball into fists, felt every instinct scream at him to grab Collins and break him. But he didn't, because breaking Collins would accomplish nothing, would give the sheriff exactly what he wanted, an excuse, a reason to retaliate. So instead, Steele moved to Rosie, gently, carefully, helped her stand straight. You okay? He asked. She looked at him, eyes wet, lips split, blood at the corner of her mouth. I'm fine, she whispered. Steele turned to look at Collins. The sheriff was smiling. That's assault, Steele said, in front of 40 witnesses. That's discipline, Collins said, for a woman who doesn't know her place. Any of you want to press charges? He looked around the diner. No, didn't think so. He walked out, deputies following, the bell chimed cheerfully, and Steele stood there with Rosie's blood on his hand from where she'd grabbed his arm and made a decision. A line had been crossed, and Collins was going to pay for it. Steele's phone rang at 9 p.m. Unknown number. He answered. Steele, it's Wrench. I got your information on Sheriff Collins. Go ahead. This guy's dirty as hell, brother. Been taking payoffs from a local drug crew called the Desert Vipers for at least 5 years. Uses the department to run protection. Anyone who gets in his way has a tendency to have accidents. Like Clayton Hartwell. Exactly like that. How'd you know about Hartwell? He's the reason I'm calling. Collins killed him, and today Collins put his hands on Hartwell's widow. Silence. Then, what do you need? Information, evidence. Something I can use to bury this son of a bitch. That's going to take time. I don't have time. Collins is escalating. The woman's in danger. More silence. Then Steele, what's this woman to you? Steele looked at the photograph of Jake and Clayton. She's a debt I owe, he said. A promise I didn't keep. And I'm done breaking promises. All right, I'm in. Give me it a week. I'll have everything you need to bring Collins down legal. But Steele, yeah, be careful. Cornered men do desperate things. And Collins sounds desperate. So am I. They hung up. Steele sat in the darkness of his garage and thought about the sound of that slap, about the blood on Rosie's lip, about the smile on Collins's face, about Jake Mitchell asking him to watch over Clayton, about Linda asking him to take care of Kat, about every promise he'd ever made and broken. His phone sat on the workbench. He picked it up, scrolled to Kat's number. Call 784. But this time before he could press the button, the phone rang in his hand. Unknown number. He answered, heavy breathing. Then a voice, female, shaking. Steele, it's Rosie. I'm sorry to call so late. I found your number in the phone book. I hope that's okay. It's fine. What's wrong? I needed to hear a friendly voice. After today, I'm scared. Steele, Collins has never actually hit me before, and now I don't know what he'll do next. Where are you? I'm home alone. I can't stop shaking. Steele stood up. Lock your doors. I'm coming over. You don't have to. Lock your doors, Rosie Asim. I'll be there in 10 minutes. He grabbed his jacket and his truck keys. This was it. The moment when you decide who you're going to be. Steele had spent 6 years running from that decision, hiding in a small town, working on motorcycles, calling a daughter who would never answer, trying to disappear into quiet obscurity. But quiet wasn't the same as peace, and obscurity wasn't the same as redemption. As he drove through the dark streets of Dustville toward Rosie Hartwell's house, Steele made a choice. He was done running, done hiding, done breaking promises. Whatever came next, whatever Collins threw at him, whatever price had to be paid, he was all in. For Rosie, for Clayton, for Jake, for Linda. And maybe if he did this right for Kat, one right thing. That's all he needed. One right thing to start balancing the scales. He pulled up to Rosie's house, a small ranch style, lights on inside. She opened the door before he could knock, face pale, arms wrapped around herself. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Always," Steele replied, and meant it. Rosie's living room smelled like lavender and old books. Photos lined the mantel above a gas fireplace that probably hadn't been lit in years. Steele recognized Clayton in most of them. Young, smiling, alive. A life frozen in time. Rosie sat on the couch with a bag of frozen peas pressed to her cheek. The swelling had started. By morning, she'd have a bruise the size of a fist. Evidence. But evidence didn't mean much when the person who should investigate was the one who'd caused it. Steele stood by the window, watching the street. Old habits. Always know your exits. Always watch for threats. "I'm sorry for calling you," Rosie said. Her voice was small, tired. "I just didn't know who else." "Don't apologize, you did the right thing. It's just, after Clayton died, I learned to handle things myself, be independent, not rely on anyone. But tonight, when I got home and locked the door and sat here alone," she trailed off. "I was scared." Steele turned from the window, looked at her, really looked. She was trying so hard to hold it together, sitting up straight, keeping the tears back, maintaining that armor of strength she'd built over 6 years of widowhood. But he could see the cracks. "You don't have to be strong right now," he said gently. "Not with me." Something in her broke. The tears came. Silent at first, then harder, her shoulders shaking. Steele crossed the room, sat beside her on the couch, not touching, just present. She leaned into him. He put his arm around her, let her cry. It reminded him of holding Kat when she was little, when she'd fall and scrape her knee and need her father, before he'd failed her, before he'd become someone she couldn't trust. "Clayton used to say I was the strongest person he knew," Rosie said through the tears. "But I don't feel strong. I feel terrified." "Strength isn't not being afraid," Steele said. "It's being afraid and doing what needs to be done anyway." "What needs to be done? What can I do? What can I?" "He's the sheriff. He has all the power, all the guns, all the law on his side." "Not all of it." She pulled back, looked at him with red eyes. "What do you mean?" "I mean there are people who can help, people outside Dustville, people Collins can't touch." "Who?" Steele hesitated. How much should he tell her? How deep should he pull her into this? But she deserved the truth, deserved to know what he was planning. "I have friends," he said, "from my old life. They're good at finding information. Evidence, the kind of evidence that can bring down someone like Collins." "The Hells Angels." He nodded. "I called in the favor. They're digging into Collins right now. Give them a week and they'll have everything we need. And then what, we go to the police are Collins. Then we go above the police, state level, federal if we have to." Rosie shook her head. "You don't understand. Clayton tried that. He found something. Something bad. He was going to report it. And then—" She couldn't finish. "I know. Hank told me." She looked surprised. "Hank Morrison, he told you about Clayton. About what he suspected. That Clayton saw something when he rewired the sheriff's station. That he was killed for it. It's not a suspicion. It's the truth." Rosie stood up, paced to the mantel, touched one of the photos. "Clayton came home the night before he died. He was scared. More scared than I'd ever seen him. He said he'd found cameras in the sheriff's station. Hidden cameras. Illegal surveillance. And files. Digital files on a server he wasn't supposed to access." Steele listened, every sense alert. He said Collins was documenting everything. Every payoff, every deal, every dirty cop on the force. Like insurance, like if anyone ever came after him, he could take everyone down with him. Where are the files now? I don't know. Clayton said they were on a server at the station. He was going to make copies, bring them to the FBI, but he never got the chance. Steele processed this. Did he tell you anything else? Any details about what was on the files? He said there was someone protecting Collins, someone high up. He didn't know who, just that Collins had a phone number he called every week. Always the same time, always alone in his office. She turned to face Steele. Clayton thought it was someone in the state government, maybe even federal. That complicated things. A corrupt small-town sheriff was one thing. A corrupt sheriff with powerful connections was another. Did Clayton make any copies before he died? Steele asked. If he did, I never found them. The police seized his computer after the accident, said it was routine. I never got it back. Of course not. Steele stood, joined her by the mantel, looked at the photos of Clayton. Young man, good man, died trying to do the right thing. I'm going to need to get into that sheriff's station, Steele said. Rosie's eyes went wide. What? No. That's insane. It's too dangerous. It's the only way. If those files are still there, they're our smoking gun. And if you get caught, I won't. Clayton didn't think he'd get caught either. He didn't think he'd die. Her voice broke. I can't watch someone else die for this. I can't. Steele turned to her, put his hands on her shoulders, looked into her eyes. I'm not Clayton, he said. No disrespect to your husband. But I've done things, seen things, survived things that prepared me for this. Trust me. I don't want to trust you. I don't want to care about you because everyone I care about ends up dead. The pain in her voice cut through him. I'm not going to die, he said firmly, and neither are you, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? She searched his face, looking for something, certainty maybe, or strength. Whatever she found, it was enough. Okay, she whispered, I trust you. Steele's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. Text from Wrench, just 2 words, call me. I need to take this, Steele said. I'll be right outside. He stepped onto Rosie's front porch. The night air was still hot. Desert heat holding even after sunset. Stars overhead. Clear sky. Beautiful if you ignored the ugliness underneath. He called Wrench. Talk to me, Steele said. I've got preliminary info on Collins. It's worse than I thought. How bad? The Desert Vipers aren't just some local crew. They're connected to a bigger operation running drugs from the border all the way to Vegas. Collins has been taking payments for 5 years, not just looking the other way, actively participating. He's on the payroll for 20 grand a month. Steele whistled low. That's serious money. Gets better or worse depending on how you look at it. I've found evidence of 3 suspicious deaths in Dustville over the last 6 years, including Clayton Hartwell. All of them were people who crossed Collins in some way. All ruled accidents or suicides. You got proof. Not court-admissible proof, but enough to know Collins is a killer, multiple times over. What about the protection? Rosie said Clayton thought Collins had someone high up covering for him. I'm working on that, but whoever it is, they're buried deep. I'll need more time. How much time? Week, maybe less if I get lucky. Make it less. Things are escalating here. What happened? Collins hit Rosie, in public, in front of 40 witnesses. Wrench swore, that's bold and stupid. Man's getting desperate. Or confident, like he knows no one can touch him. All the more reason to be careful, Steele. Desperate men are dangerous. Confident men with nothing to lose are worse. I know, but I'm not backing down. Didn't think you would. Never seen you back down from anything. A pause. You want backup? I can have 10 brothers there by tomorrow night. Steele almost said yes. Almost called in the cavalry. But this wasn't Hell's Angels business. This was personal. Not yet, he said. I'll let you know if that changes. Your funeral. Not planning on having one anytime soon. They hung up. Steele stood on the porch for a moment, thinking, planning. The smart move was to wait, let Wrench gather evidence, build an airtight case, go through proper channels. But proper channels took time, and Rosie didn't have time. Not with Collins escalating, not with that bruise on her face announcing to the whole town that she was vulnerable. No, the smart move wasn't fast enough. Steele needed to be smarter than smart. He went back inside. Rosie was in the kitchen, making tea. Her hands shook slightly as she poured hot water into a mug. Everything okay? She asked. My friend confirmed what we suspected. Collins is dirty, very dirty, but we need proof. The files. The files, which means I need to get into the sheriff's station. When tonight, she nearly dropped the kettle. Tonight, that's impossible. The station is locked, alarmed, and there are always deputies on duty. I know. That's why I'm not going in the front door. Then how? She stopped. Understanding dawned. The electrical system. Clayton rewired the whole building. He would have known every access point, every weakness. Did he keep plans, blueprints, anything? Rosie set down the kettle, thought for a moment. Then she moved to a cabinet in the hallway, pulled out a cardboard box, set it on the kitchen table. Clayton's work files. She opened it. Inside were folders, invoices, and a large rolled-up sheet of paper. Blueprints. Steele unrolled them. Detailed electrical plans for the Dustville Sheriff's Station. Every wire, every junction box, every panel, and there in Clayton's handwriting. Notes. Server room. Basement level. Access via maintenance tunnel. Code 4782. He knew, Rosie whispered. He knew he might need to get back in. Steele studied the plans. The maintenance tunnel ran from the building next door. An old storage facility, probably abandoned. A way in. I need these, he said. Take them. Take whatever you need. She paused. I'm coming with you. No, it's not a request. That's my husband's legacy. His death, his evidence. I have a right to be there. It's too dangerous. I don't care. You said I was strong. Prove that you meant it. Let me be strong. Steele looked hard at her, saw the determination, the fire. The woman who'd built a life from nothing after losing everything. She was right. She'd earned this. Okay, he said, but you do exactly what I say. When I say it, no arguments. No arguments. And if things go bad, you run. You don't wait for me. You don't try to help. You run and you call the number I'm going to give you. Understand? She nodded. Steele pulled out his phone, wrote down Wrench's number on a piece of paper, handed it to her. If anything happens to me, call this man. Tell him Steele sent you. He'll take care of you. Rosie took the paper, folded it, put it in her pocket. Nothing's going to happen to you, she said. No, it's not, but insurance is smart. He rolled up the blueprints, checked his watch, 11:30 p.m. We go at 2 a.m. That's when the night shift is most tired, most likely to be careless. What do we do until then? We prepare. For the next 2 hours, Steele went through everything, studied the blueprints until he had them memorized, planned entry points and exit routes, identified where the deputies would be stationed, calculated response times. Military training? Decades old but still sharp. Rosie watched him work, saw a different man emerge, not the quiet mechanic who drank coffee at her diner, but someone harder, more dangerous, someone who'd lived a life she couldn't imagine. Can I ask you something? She said. Go ahead. Why are you doing this? Really? You say it's about a promise to Clayton, but you didn't know Clayton. Not really. Steele stopped what he was doing, looked at the blueprints, at Clayton's handwriting. I knew his brother, he said finally, Jake Mitchell. We served together in Desert Storm. He saved my life. I saved his. We were brothers, the kind of brothers who die for each other. Jake Mitchell. Clayton talked about him, said he was a hero. He was, but the war followed him home, got inside his head. PTSD. We didn't have good treatment for it back then. We barely acknowledged it existed. Steele's voice went quiet. He killed himself in 1992. I found him. Rosie's hand went to her mouth. Oh, God. At his funeral, Clayton found me. 19 years old, just lost his big brother. He told me Jake had written a letter, asked me to watch over Clayton, take care of him. And you promised. I promised, and then I forgot. Got caught up in my own life. The club, the chaos. I sent money a few times. Christmas cards. But actually be there for him. Actually watch over him, like Jake asked. Steele shook his head. I failed. You didn't know, I didn't have to know. I just had to keep my word, but I didn't. And now Clayton's dead. Killed by a corrupt sheriff. Leaving behind a widow who deserves better. Who deserves justice. He looked at Rosie. I can't bring back Jake. I can't bring back Clayton. But I can do this. I can make sure Collins pays. That's the promise I'm keeping. Rosie was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached across the table, took Steele's hand. Clayton would have liked you, she said. He would have called you friend. I hope so. At 1:45 a.m. they prepared to leave. Steele wore dark clothes, black jeans, black jacket. Gave Rosie a similar outfit to change into. They looked like shadows. He checked his gear. Flashlight, tools, a small crowbar. Nothing that looked like weapons. Nothing that would make this look like anything other than trespassing if they got caught. Though if they got caught, weapons wouldn't help anyway. Ready, he asked. Rosie nodded, scared but determined. They took Steele's truck, drove through Dustville's empty streets, town asleep, peaceful, unaware. The sheriff's station sat on Main Street, a squat concrete building from the 70s. Functional, ugly, two police cruisers parked out front. They drove past without slowing, turned down the alley, found the old storage facility next door. Steele parked in the shadows, killed the engine. Silence, just the sound of their breathing. Last chance to back out, he said. Not a chance, Marshal. They got out, moved to the storage facility's side door. Steele picked the lock in 15 seconds. Old skill, rusty but serviceable. Inside smelled like dust and rat droppings. Empty shelves, broken pallets, nothing of value. Steele pulled out the flashlight, consulted the blueprints one more time. The maintenance tunnel entrance should be in the back corner, behind a false wall. They found it, a metal panel, locked with a simple padlock. Steele cut it with bolt cutters. Behind the panel, darkness. A tunnel, narrow, low ceiling, pipes and cables running along the walls. This was it. Point of no return. Steele looked at Rosie. You stay here. Keep watch. If anyone comes, text me. I'll abort. I thought I was coming with you. You are. You're watching my back. That's just as important. She didn't like it, but she nodded, understood. Steele entered the tunnel. It was tight, claustrophobic. He had to crouch to move. The flashlight beam cutting through the dark. He counted his steps. According to the blueprints, 60 feet to the junction. Then a right turn, another 40 feet to the access panel in the sheriff's station basement. His breathing echoed, his heartbeat loud in his ears. Years since he'd done anything like this. Years since he'd needed to. But it came back. The training, the focus, the ability to shut down fear and just move. 60 steps, turn right, 40 more steps. There. An access panel in the ceiling of the tunnel. 4 bolts. Steele removed them with a screwdriver, slowly, quietly. The panel came free. He pushed it up, carefully, inch by inch. No alarms, no lights, no sounds. He pulled himself up into the basement of the sheriff's station. The server room, exactly where Clayton's notes said it would be. Steele replaced the panel behind him, stood, looked around. The room was small, climate-controlled, racks of computer equipment, blinking lights, the hum of fans, and in the corner, a single server, isolated from the others, no network cable connected, air-gapped, deliberately cut off from any outside access. That was it. Had to be. Steele approached. The server was running, green status lights, password protected. He tried the code from Clayton's notes. 4782, access denied. Shit. He tried variations. Reverse, double digits. Nothing. Then he saw it. A piece of tape on the side of the server. Faded, but still readable. A phone number. Handwritten, and below it, server PW Desert _ Viper _ 2018 Collins' insurance. Written down in case he forgot. Arrogant, stupid, perfect. Steele typed the password. The login screen disappeared. He was in. Files. Hundreds of them. Video files, audio recordings, spreadsheets, documents, everything. Steele pulled out a USB drive. Started copying. The files were large. This would take time. 5 minutes. 10. His phone buzzed. Text from Rosie. Car just pulled up. Deputy getting out. Steele's heart rate spiked. But he didn't panic. Training kicked in. How long until the deputy checked the basement? Minutes, seconds. The file transfer showed 70% complete. Come on. Come on. 80%. Footsteps above. Heavy boots on linoleum. 90%. A door opened somewhere. Closing in. 95%. The basement door at the top of the stairs creaked. 100%. Transfer complete. Steele yanked the USB drive, shoved it in his pocket, moved to the access panel. Light flooded the basement stairs. Hello, someone down there. Steele froze. Footsteps on the stairs. Descending. He couldn't get the panel open fast enough. Couldn't climb down without making noise. He was trapped. The deputy appeared at the bottom of the stairs. Young, maybe 25. Hand on his gun, but not drawn. He saw Steele. Time stopped. For one long second, they just stared at each other. Then the deputy's hand moved to his radio. Steele moved faster, crossed the distance in 3 strides, grabbed the deputy's wrist before he could key the radio, applied pressure, a joint lock from the Marines. The deputy gasped, dropped the radio. I don't want to hurt you, Steele said quietly, but I will if I have to. You're breaking in. I'm exposing corruption. There's a difference. I should arrest you. You could try. But I've got 30 years and 70 pounds on you. How do you think that ends? The deputy was breathing hard, scared, but not stupid. What corruption, he asked. Your boss, Sheriff Collins, he's been on the take from the Desert Vipers for 5 years. He's got evidence in this room. Evidence I just copied. That's impossible. Sheriff Collins is a murderer. He killed Clayton Hartwell, among others. The deputy's eyes widened. Clayton Hartwell was an accident. No, it wasn't. And deep down you know that. You've seen things, heard things, things that didn't add up, haven't you? The deputy didn't answer, but something in his expression shifted. Doubt. Steele pressed. What's your name? Deputy? Deputy Carson Hayes. How long you been on the force, Carson? 2 years. You join up to help people make a difference. Yes. Then help me. Let me walk out of here. In a week, maybe less. Everything I copied tonight will be in the hands of people who can do something about it. Collins will go down. The department will be clean. You'll be a hero for not stopping me. Hayes was breathing hard, thinking, wrestling with it. How do I know you're telling the truth, he asked. You don't. You have to trust me. I don't know you. No, but you knew Clayton. Everyone says he was a good man, honest, hard worker. The kind of guy who wouldn't drive off a cliff accidentally. Hayes swallowed. I always wondered about that. The angle was wrong, the trajectory. I took accident reconstruction in the academy. It didn't make sense. Because it wasn't an accident. And you can prove that. With what's on this drive, yes. Hayes looked at the server, at Steele, at his own radio on the floor. Making a choice, finally he stepped back, raised his hands. I didn't see you, he said quietly. I came down here, checked the room. No one was here. I went back upstairs. Steele released him. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just make sure you're telling the truth, because if you're not, I just ended my career for nothing. I'm telling the truth. Hayes picked up his radio, looked at it, then at Steele. There's a back exit, through the evidence room. No cameras. I'll make sure the door's unlocked. Why are you helping me? Because Clayton was my neighbor growing up. He taught me how to change a tire when I was 16. And when I heard he died, Hayes's jaw tightened. I wanted to believe it was an accident, but I never did. Not really. He turned and walked back up the stairs. Steele waited 60 seconds, then opened the access panel, climbed down into the tunnel, replaced the panel behind him, crawled back through the darkness, emerged in the storage facility. Rosie was there, pale, frightened. Oh, thank God, she breathed. I saw the deputy go in. I thought, I'm fine, we're fine, let's go. They ran to the truck, got in. Steele started the engine and pulled out slowly. No screeching tires, no drama. Just 2 people leaving at 2:30 in the morning. They were 3 blocks away when Rosie spoke. Did you get it? Steele patted his pocket. Every file, every video, everything. She closed her eyes, relief washing over her. Clayton's evidence, after all these years. You found it. We found it. He drove her home, walked her to the door. What happens now, she asked. Now I get this to people who can use it. And we wait. How long? Not long, days, maybe a week. And Collins. Collins is done. He just doesn't know it yet. Rosie looked at him, really looked at him, seeing him fully for the first time. Who are you, Steele, really? Just a man trying to keep a promise. You're more than that. Maybe once, but that was a long time ago. She reached up, kissed his cheek. Quick, chaste. Thank you, she whispered. Then she went inside. Steele drove home, exhausted, adrenaline crash setting in, but also at something else. Purpose. For the first time in years, he'd done something that mattered. Something that would make a difference. He pulled into his garage, killed the engine, sat in the darkness. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Hello, heavy breathing. Then a voice. Female, shaking. Dad, Steele's world stopped. Cat, I saw you on the news. Well, not the news, a video. Someone posted it on Facebook. You, in a diner, standing up to a sheriff. And her voice broke. I couldn't believe it was you. Kat, I've been watching it over and over for 3 days, trying to decide if I should call, if I even wanted to talk to you, but I needed to hear your voice. 784 calls, 15 years of silence. And now this. I'm glad you called, Steele said, his voice rough with emotion. Are you okay? That sheriff looked angry. And the woman he hit, I'm fine, she's fine, we're handling it. Long story, silence. Then, Dad, why did you do it? Why did you stand up to him like that? Because it was the right thing to do. But you could have been hurt, arrested. Why risk it? Steele thought about Jake, about Clayton, about Linda, about every promise he'd ever broken. Because I'm tired of standing by while bad things happen, he said. I did that for too long, with your mother, with you. I stood by when I should have stood up. Not anymore. More silence. He could hear her breathing, crying quietly. Kat, he said gently. I'm still angry at you, she whispered. I'm still hurt. 15 years doesn't go away because of one video. I know. But I miss you. God help me, I miss my dad. Steele's eyes burned. I miss you too, every single day. I'm in Seattle, I'm a surgeon. I have a good life, I don't need you. I know. But maybe I want you, a little bit. Maybe. I'll take whatever you're willing to give. I can't promise anything. I can't promise I'll call again or that we'll be okay. I needed you to know I saw you, and I'm proud of you for standing up, even if it was stupid and dangerous. It was both those things. A sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. Be careful, Dad, please. I will. I have to go. Cat wait, but she'd already hung up. Steele sat in his truck in the darkness of his garage holding a phone that had gone silent. But for the first time in 15 years, that silence felt different. Not like an ending, like a door opening. Just a crack, but open. He looked at the USB drive in his hand. Evidence that would bring down a corrupt sheriff. Justice for Clayton. Safety for Rosie. One right thing. And maybe, just maybe, it had been enough to start healing something he'd thought was broken forever. His phone buzzed again. Text from an unknown number. This is Kat. I'm saving your number. Don't make me regret this. Steele typed back with shaking hands. You won't, I promise. He hit send. Then he sat there and cried. For Linda, for Kat, for Jake and Clayton, and all the years lost. But also for hope. For the possibility of redemption. For the chance to be the man he should have been all along. Morning came. Steele showered, changed clothes, made coffee. At 6:52, he walked into Rosie's diner. The bell chimed. Rosie looked up, smiled. The bruise on her face had darkened overnight, purple and yellow, but her eyes were bright. Morning, Steele. Morning, Rosie. She poured his coffee, set it down. I slept better last night than I have in years, she said quietly. Knowing that file is out there, knowing Collins will pay. He will, I promise. I believe you. The diner was empty, too early even for the regulars. Rosie leaned across the counter. Can I tell you something? Anything. Clayton used to talk about his brother, Jake. He said Jake was the bravest man he'd ever known. That Jake would run into fire to save a stranger. That kind of courage. She paused. I see that same courage in you. I'm not brave, I'm just stubborn. Same thing sometimes. The bell above the door chimed. They both turned. Sheriff Wade Collins stood in the doorway. Alone, no deputies, no backup, just him and a gun on his hip and murder in his eyes. We need to talk, he said. Diner's closed, Rosie said, voice steady despite the fear. Not to meet ye. Collins walked in, let the door close behind him. I know it was you, old man, last night. My deputy said the server room was accessed. Funny thing about that deputy. He quit this morning, just walked in and quit. Wouldn't say why. Steele said nothing. So I checked the logs. Someone copied files, all of them, every single one. Collins moved closer. That was you, wasn't it? Don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. You're just some drifter who fixes bikes. Nothing to do with breaking into a law enforcement facility and stealing evidence. Collins's hand rested on his gun. Where is it, the USB drive? Where is it, safe? That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. Collins drew his gun, pointed it at Steele's chest. Rosie gasped. Last chance, Collins said. Give me the drive, or I kill you both and claim self-defense. 40 witnesses saw you slap Rosie yesterday, Steele said calmly. You think you can explain two more bodies. I'm the sheriff. I explain what I want. Steele stood slowly, hands visible, non-threatening. You're not going to shoot me, he said. No. No, because you need to know where that drive is. You need to know who I've told. Who else knows? Killing me just makes it worse for you. Colin's hand shook slightly, anger and fear mixing. You have no idea who you're dealing with, he said. Actually, I do. You're a small-time crook who got in over his head. The Desert Vipers own you, and whoever you're calling every week for protection is going to cut you loose the second this goes public. Collins's face went white. How do you? I know everything. I have everything, and in about 72 hours, so will the FBI. You're bluffing. Am I? They stared at each other. Finally, Collins lowered the gun, but didn't holster it. This isn't over, he said. Yes, it is. You just haven't accepted it yet. Collins backed toward the door. You made a mistake, both of you, and you're going to pay for it. He left. The bell chimed cheerfully behind him. Rosie let out a breath she'd been holding. He's going to kill us. He's going to try, but we're ready. Are we? Steele pulled out his phone. Texted Wrench. Need backup. Now. Things are escalating. The response came in 30 seconds. On the way. 6 hours. Steele looked at Rosie. We have 6 hours to stay alive, he said. Then my brothers arrive, and then Collins learns what happens when you threaten family. 6 hours. Steele had survived longer odds. Bamwan. Kuwait in 91. Firefights where the seconds stretched into eternities and every breath felt like borrowed time. He'd made it through those. He could make it through 6 hours. But back then, he'd only had himself to protect. Now he had Rosie. Close the diner, he said. Right now, tell anyone who asks that you're not feeling well. Then pack a bag. We're not staying here. Where are we going? My place. It's defensible. One entrance. Good sightlines. And Collins doesn't know the layout. Rosie didn't argue. She flipped the sign on the door to closed, locked it, called her part-time waitress Amy, and told her to take the day off. Family emergency. Not a lie. Steele watched the street through the window. 2 police cruisers drove past. Slow, deliberate, looking. Collins was mobilizing. 20 minutes later, they were in Steele's truck heading toward his garage. Rosie sat in the passenger seat with a duffel bag at her feet. Everything she'd need for a few days. Clothes, toiletries, a framed photo of Clayton. The things you grab when your life gets reduced to what fits in a bag. Steele knew that feeling. Tell me about your friends, Rosie said. The ones coming to help? The Hell's Angels. Yes, should I be afraid of them? Steele considered the question. They're dangerous men, live outside the law more often than in it, but they follow a code. They protect their own, and right now you're one of their own. Because you say so. Because I say so. She was quiet for a moment. You must have been important, in the club, for them to drop everything and drive through the night. I was president, long time ago. Why did you leave? The question hung in the air. Steele gripping the steering wheel tighter. I had a choice to make, he said finally. The club or my family? I chose the club, and I lost everything that mattered. When my wife died and my daughter stopped speaking to me, I realized I'd traded the real thing for something that was just brotherhood cosplay. So I walked away. Do you regret it leaving? I regret that I didn't leave sooner, that I didn't choose differently when it mattered. They pulled into Steele's garage. He parked the truck inside, closed the bay door, locked it. His home was attached to the garage, a small 2-bedroom house, modest, clean, functional. Rosie looked around, saw the Spartan furniture, the lack of decoration, the life of a man who'd stopped letting himself get comfortable anywhere. You can take the guest room, Steele said. It's not much, but the bed's clean. Thank you. He showed her the room. She set down her bag, looked at him. What happens now? Now we wait. My brothers will be here by early afternoon. Then we figure out our next move. And Collins. Collins is going to do what cornered animals do. Get desperate, get violent. We need to be ready. Steele's phone buzzed. Text from Wrench. 4 hours out. How bad is it? Steele typed back. Collins knows we have evidence. He's preparing something. Don't know what. Sit tight. We're coming heavy. Steele pocketed his phone, went to his bedroom, opened the closet. In the back, hidden behind hanging clothes, was a gun safe. He opened it. Inside, a Colt 1911. the same pistol he'd carried in Desert Storm, cleaned and maintained, ready, 2 spare magazines, a tactical knife, and something he hadn't touched in 6 years, his Hells Angels vest, full colors, President patch still sewn on. He looked at it for a long moment. That vest represented everything he'd been, everything he'd lost, every choice that had led him to this moment. He left it in the safe, took the gun instead. When he returned to the living room, Rosie was standing by the window, watching the road. "You don't have to stay," Steele said. "I can call Wrench, have him take you somewhere safe, somewhere Collins can't find you." "No, Rosie." I said no. She turned to face him. "I've been running for 6 years, hiding, trying to make myself small enough that Collins would lose interest. It didn't work. He just kept pushing, kept taking, until there was nothing left to take." Her voice hardened. "I'm done running. This ends today." Steele saw something in her eyes he recognized. The moment when fear turns to fury, when prey becomes predator. "All right," he said. "Then we end it." The morning crawled by. Steele checked his phone every 10 minutes, watched the road, kept the gun within reach. Rosie made coffee, strong and black. Neither of them drank much, too wired, too alert. At 11:30, Steele's phone rang. "Wrench. We're 20 minutes out, but we got a problem." "What kind of problem?" "State Police checkpoint on Route 47. They're stopping every vehicle, checking IDs, looking for something. Or someone. Yeah, Collins called in reinforcements. This is bigger than we thought." "Ooh," Steele thawed fast. "How many brothers you got with you?" 11, including me. 12 Hells Angels. Against how many cops? Bad odds, getting worse." "Can you get around the checkpoint?" Steele asked. "Not without going 50 miles out of the way. And that puts us 3 hours behind." 3 hours they didn't have. "Hold position," Steele said. "I'll figure something out." He hung up. Rosie was watching him. "What's wrong?" "Collins set up roadblocks. He's not just trying to protect himself. He's trying to isolate us. Cut off any help." "Can your friends get through?" "Not fast enough." "So what do we do?" Steele looked at the USB drive sitting on his kitchen table. The evidence, everything they needed to bring the Collins down. But evidence only mattered if it got into the right hands. And right now, those hands were too far away. "We need to go to Collins," Steele said. "What? That's insane." "It's the only play we have. Collins thinks we're trapped, waiting for rescue. He'll be preparing for a siege, fortifying his position. He won't expect us to come to him and do what, just walk into the sheriff's station. Not the station, his house. He has to go home eventually, and when he does, we'll be waiting." Rosie stared at him. "You want to ambush the sheriff? At his house?" "I want to negotiate, but on our terms, not his." "What's stopping him from just shooting us?" "This." Steele held up the USB drive. "The evidence. He needs it, and he needs to know who else has copies. As long as we have leverage, we have a chance." "This is crazy. You got a better idea." She didn't. At noon, they left the garage. Steele drove. Rosie navigated using her phone. Collins's house was on the outskirts of town. 5 acres, private, secluded, perfect for a man with things to hide. They parked 200 yards away, hidden by a stand of trees, approached on foot. The house was a sprawling ranch, expensive. Too expensive for a sheriff's salary. Proof of corruption built into the architecture. No cars in the driveway, no signs of life. But Steele wasn't buying it. "He's here," Steele said quietly. "Or he will be. We wait." They found a position in the tree line. Good cover, clear view of the house. And they waited. 1 hour, 2. The desert sun beat down, temperature climbing past 105. Sweat soaked through Steele's shirt. Rosie's face was flushed, dehydrated. But they didn't move. Patience was survival. At 2:15, a car appeared. Sheriff Wade Collins, driving his personal vehicle, a black Dodge Charger. He pulled into the driveway, sat in the car for a moment, on the phone, animated conversation. Then he got out, went inside. "Now what?" Rosie whispered. "Now we knock on his door." They approached the house. Steele kept his hand near the concealed pistol, just in case. He rang the doorbell. Footsteps inside. Heavy. Approaching. The door opened. Collins stood there, still in uniform, gun on his hip, face red with anger and heat. "You," he said, "we need to talk." "I've got nothing to say to you." "Then listen, I have copies of everything, multiple copies, stored in multiple locations. If anything happens to me or Rosie, those files go to the FBI, the state attorney general, the media, everyone. Collins' jaw clenched. You're bluffing. Want to test that theory? Kill us. See what happens. They stared at each other. Finally, Collins stepped aside. Get in, both of you. They entered. The house was cold, air conditioning on full blast, expensive furniture, big screen TV, the trappings of wealth. Collins led them to a living room, gestured to a couch. Steele remained standing. Rosie stayed close to him. You got 5 minutes, Collins said. Then I'm calling my deputies and having you arrested for trespassing. Call them. I'll tell them about the $20,000 a month you take from the Desert Vipers, about Clayton Hartwell, about the hidden server in your station. You got no proof. Steele pulled out his phone, opened a video file, hit play. Collins' own voice filled the room, a recording from the hidden cameras. Collins talking to a man in biker colors. Desert Vipers patch visible, handing over cash, discussing routes, shipments, irrefutable. Collins' face went white. Where did you get that? Your own system. Clayton installed it, and he was smarter than you gave him credit for. That son of a bitch, that good man, who you murdered. Collins lunged at Steele, but Steele was ready, sidestepped, grabbed Collins' arm, used his momentum against him, threw him into the wall. Collins hit hard, slid down, dazed. Rosie gasped. Steele kept his voice calm. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Your choice. Collins looked up, blood running from his nose, hatred in his eyes. What do you want? I want you to confess everything on camera, and then I want you to resign, walk away, disappear. And if I don't, then the evidence goes public. You go to prison, and every cop dealer and politician you work with goes down with you. You think they'll let that happen? You think the people protecting me will just stand by? I think they'll cut you loose the second you become a liability, which you already are. Collins wiped blood from his face, laughed, bitter and broken. You don't understand. This is bigger than you know. Bigger than Dustville, bigger than some local drug crew. Then explain it to me. Collins looked at Rosie. Your husband, Clayton, he was a good man, I'll give you that. But he was stupid. He thought he could take on the system. Thought one man with evidence could make a difference. He did make a difference, Rosie said quietly. He left behind the truth, and the truth is killing you. The truth? Collins laughed again. You want the truth? Fine, I'll give it to you. He stood, walked to a cabinet, opened it. Steele's hand went to his gun, but Collins just pulled out a bottle of whiskey, poured himself a drink, downed it. I didn't want to kill Clayton, he said. I liked him. He did good work, but he saw things he shouldn't have. And the people I work for don't forgive that. Who do you work for? Steele asked. You already know, the Vipers. But they're just the local franchise. The real power is above them. People in Phoenix, people in the state government, people who've been running this operation for 20 years. Names, and you think I'm stupid enough to give you names, they'd kill me before I finish the sentence. They're going to kill you anyway, the second you stop being useful. Collins poured another drink. Probably, but at least this way I get to live a little longer. Steele's phone buzzed. Text from Wrench. Got through checkpoint. 30 minutes out. 30 minutes. They just had to last 30 more minutes. But Collins saw the look on Steele's face. Your backup, they're not coming. I've got roadblocks on every road into Dustville. State police, sheriff's deputies from 3 counties. No one's getting through. We'll see. Collins set down his glass, drew his gun. This has been fun, but it's over. Give me the USB drive, all the copies, or I kill you both right now, Dipum. Shoot us and you get nothing. I'll take my chances. He aimed at Rosie. Her first, then you. I'll claim self-defense. Say you broke into my house. Threatened me. I'll be a hero. Steele moved between them. You shoot her, you shoot me. Either way, the evidence goes public. You're bluffing. Mike. Collins's hands shook, finger on the trigger, and then the window exploded. Glass shattered. Something small and metal flew through. Flashbang grenade. Steele recognized it instantly. Grabbed Rosie, threw them both to the floor behind the couch. The grenade detonated. Light and sound. Overwhelming. Disorienting. Steele's ears rang. Vision whited out. But he'd been trained for this. Recovered faster. Collins was on the ground, screaming, blind and deaf. The front door burst open. Men in tactical gear poured in. Not police. Desert Vipers. The cartel had come to clean up their mess. Steele pulled his gun, fired twice, dropped the first man through the door. The others scattered, took cover, Gunfire erupted. Bullets tore through walls. Furniture exploded. The house became a war zone. Steel returned fire. Training from decades ago taking over. Muscle memory, controlled bursts, suppressive fire. He grabbed Rosie. Stay down, don't move. She nodded, terrified but alive. Collins was crawling toward the back of the house, trying to escape. Steele let him go. Bigger problems. 3 Vipers in the house, maybe more outside. Steele's magazine ran dry. He ejected it, slammed in a fresh one, fired again, dropped another Viper. 2 left. They were advancing, coordinated, trained. Steele was outnumbered. And then the sound he'd been waiting for. Motorcycles. Dozens of them. The roar of Harley-Davidson engines shaking the ground. The cavalry had arrived. The front door crashed open again. But this time it was Wrench, and 10 Hell's Angels behind him. Armed, angry, ready. The remaining Vipers saw them and ran. Out the back, into the desert. The Angels pursued. Gunfire in the distance. Shouts, then silence. Wrench crossed to Steele. You all right, brother? Yeah, I'm good. The Lady Steele looked at Rosie. She was pale, shaking, but alive. She's good too. Wrench nodded, surveyed the damage. Hell of a party you threw. Where's Collins? Back bedroom. He's not going anywhere. They found Collins in his bedroom, sitting on the floor, back against the bed, gun in his hand, but not pointed at them, pointed at himself, under his chin. Don't come closer, Collins said. Voice hoarse, defeated. Steele stopped. It's over. You know that. Yeah, I know. Put down the gun. Turn yourself in. Maybe you can make a deal. Collins laughed. Hollow. Empty. A deal? You don't make deals with these people. You just die. Fast if you're lucky. Slow if you're not. Then testify. Witness protection. New life. There's no protection from them. They'll find me, eventually, and when they do. He shook his head. At least this way it's on my terms. Collins. Tell Rosie I'm sorry. About Clayton. About everything. He was a good man, better than me. Tell her yourself. I can't. I'm not brave enough to face her. Collins looked at Steele. You're a good man too. Better than you think. You came back. For a woman you barely knew. Because it was right. That's something. Don't do this. It's already done. Collins closed his eyes and pulled the trigger. The sound echoed through the house. Steele turned away. Couldn't watch. Behind him, Rosie stood in the doorway. She'd seen it all. He's dead, Steele said quietly. She nodded. No tears, no emotion. Just empty. Good, she said. They left the bedroom. Wrench was coordinating with the other Angels, securing the perimeter, making sure no more Vipers were coming. What about the bodies? One of them asked. Call the state police, Steele said. Tell them there was a shooting. Officer down, suspects fled. You sure about that? Collins is dead by his own hand. The Vipers attacked first. We defended ourselves. That's the truth. All right, your call. Steele found Rosie in the living room. She was staring at the destruction. The bullet holes, the blood, the evidence of violence. It's really over, she said, isn't it? It's over. I don't know how to feel. I should feel relief or satisfaction or something, but I just feel tired. Steele understood. Vengeance was supposed to be satisfying, was supposed to heal, but it just left you empty. The police arrived an hour later. State police, not local. They took statements, secured the scene, removed the bodies. Collins's death was ruled a suicide. The Viper's attack was ruled self-defense. The USB drive was turned over to the FBI. Within 48 hours, 15 arrests were made. Cops, politicians, cartel members. The network Collins had been part of started to unravel. Justice, real justice. But it felt hollow. A week later, Steele sat in his garage. The Hells Angels had gone back to Nevada. The state police had finished their investigation. Dustville was quiet again. Rosie had reopened the diner, life returning to normal, whatever normal meant now. Steele's phone sat on his workbench. No calls from Kat since that night. No texts. He'd wanted to call her, tell her everything, but he'd promised to let her set the pace. So he waited and worked on motorcycles and tried not to think about how empty the silence was. At 6:52 the next morning, he walked into Rosie's diner. The bell chimed. Rosie looked up, smiled. A real smile this time. No fear, no shadows. Morning, Steele. Morning, Rosie. She poured his coffee, set it down. Usual. Please. She turned to call the order. stopped, looked back at him. Thank you, she said quietly, for everything, for believing me, for fighting for me, for... She couldn't finish. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. You gave me my life back. That deserves thanks. You had the strength all along. I just helped you remember it. She smiled, softer. Maybe we helped each other remember. Before Steele could respond, the bell chimed again. He turned and froze. A woman stood in the doorway, late 30s, dark hair pulled back, professional clothes, doctor's bearing. Catherine, Kat, his daughter. She saw him. Their eyes met. Time stopped. Neither moved. Neither spoke. The entire diner held its breath. Finally, Kat walked forward. One step, then another. Stopped 3 feet away. Hi, Dad, she said. Steele's throat closed. Couldn't speak. I, I got on a plane yesterday. Flew to Phoenix, rented a car, drove all night. She was talking fast, nervous. I kept telling myself to turn around, that I was being stupid, that 15 years doesn't heal because of one video. But I couldn't stop thinking about what you said, about being tired of standing by. And I realized I was doing the same thing, standing by letting hurt and anger make my decisions. She took a breath. I don't know if we can fix this. I don't know if we can be father and daughter again. But I want to try, if you'll let me. Steele stood, slowly, carefully, crossed the distance between them, and hugged his daughter, for the first time in 15 years. She stiffened, then relaxed. Then her arms came up and hugged him back. I'm sorry, Steele whispered, for everything, for not being there, for choosing wrong, for all of it. I know, Kat said, her voice thick with tears. I know you are. They stood there, father and daughter, broken things trying to heal. Rosie watched from behind the counter, tears streaming down her face. Finally, they pulled apart. Kat wiped her eyes, laughed, embarrassed. Sorry, I'm a mess. You're beautiful. I'm a disaster. You're here, that's all that matters. They sat down, at the counter, side by side. Rosie appeared with coffee, 2 cups, set them down without a word. Kat looked at her. You must be Rosie. I am. Thank you for taking care of him. He took care of me first. Kat smiled. That sounds like him, when he actually shows up. Kat Steele started. I'm kidding, mostly. She looked at him. We have a lot to talk about, years to catch up on. It's not going to be easy. I know. I'm still angry, still hurt. I know. But I want to try, to have a relationship, whatever that looks like. Whatever you're willing to give, I'll take. She nodded, sipped her coffee, made a face. This is terrible. It's the best in 60 miles, Steele said. Then the competition must be awful. Rosie laughed. Your dad says the same thing, must be genetic. They sat together talking. Slowly at first, then easier. Stories, memories, the good ones. Building a bridge over 15 years of silence. It would take time, it would take work, but they were trying. And trying was everything. 3 months later, Steele stood in the Dustville Cemetery. The sun was setting, desert sky painted orange and pink. He held flowers, white roses, Linda's favorite. Her grave was simple. Just her name and dates. Nothing fancy. She wouldn't have wanted fancy. Hey, baby, Steele said quietly. Been a while since I visited. I'm sorry about that. Things have been complicated. He knelt, set the flowers down. I have news. Good news. Kat came back. We're talking again. Really talking. She's staying in Dustville for a few months, helping Rosie at the diner. Getting to know me again. It's not perfect. We still argue, still have hard conversations, but we're trying, and I think we're going to be okay. The wind rustled through the cemetery. Peaceful. Calm. I kept the promise, Steele continued, the one you asked me to make, to take care of Kat. I know I failed for a long time, but I'm doing it now, and I'll keep doing it for the rest of my life. He stood, looked at the gravestone. I miss you every day, but I think you'd be proud of Kat, of me, of what we're building. A hand touched his shoulder. He turned. Kat stood there. She'd followed him. You okay? She asked. Yeah, just, saying hello. Kat looked at her mother's grave, tears in her eyes. Hi, Mom, she said softly. I miss you, but I think I'm finding Dad again. Finally. I hope that makes you happy. She knelt, added her own flowers. Yellow roses, different but fitting. Together they stood in silence, honoring the woman they'd both loved, the woman who'd brought them together even in death. After a while, they walked back to Steele's truck. "Rosie's making dinner tonight," Kat said. "She invited us both. Said she's making pot roast." "Rosie doesn't cook. She runs a diner. Apparently she's making an exception. Don't ask me why." Steele knew why. Rosie was building family too, finding connection after years of being alone. They were all healing, in their own ways. "Sounds good," Steele said. "I'll be there." "Dad, yeah, thank you for not giving up on me, on yourself, on doing the right thing. I should have done it sooner. But you did it. That's what matters." They drove back to Dustville, and as the sun set behind them, the desert was beautiful in the dying light, harsh and unforgiving, but beautiful, like life, like redemption. At Rosie's house, the table was set for three, pot roast in the center, homemade, imperfect but made with care. They sat together. Rosie, Kat, Steele. Three people who'd been broken by loss and failure and fear. Three people who'd found each other, who'd chosen to heal together. Rosie raised her glass of water. "A toast to new beginnings." "To second chances," Kat added. Steele lifted his glass, looked at these two women, his daughter, his friend, his family. "To keeping promises," he said. They drank. And in that moment, in a small house, in a small town, in the middle of the Arizona desert, Marcus Steele Donovan felt something he hadn't felt in 15 years. Peace. Not the absence of struggle, but the presence of purpose. The knowledge that he'd done something right, that he'd kept his word, that he'd fought for people who mattered, and found his way home. Later that night after dinner, after Kat had gone to her temporary apartment, after Rosie had cleaned up, Steele sat on his porch. The stars were out, millions of them. The desert sky endless and clear. His phone buzzed. Text from Kat. "Thank you for tonight. It felt like family. I forgot what that felt like." Steele typed back. "Me too. Same time next week, definitely." "Love you, Dad." Steele stared at those last three words. 15 years since he'd heard them. "Love you too, sweetheart. Always have. Always will." He set down the phone, looked up at the stars, and smiled. Somewhere up there, Linda was watching. And he hoped she was proud, because he'd finally learned that the only thing worth fighting for was the people you love. That honor wasn't about a patch on a vest or a title in a club. It was about showing up, keeping your word, doing the right thing even when it cost you. Marcus Steele Donovan was 68 years old. He'd been a Marine, a Hell's Angel, a husband, a father. He'd failed more times than he could count. But he'd learned something in this small Arizona town, that it's never too late to be the man you should have been. That redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about building a better future. One promise at a time, one right choice at a time, one day at a time. He'd kept his promise to Jake Mitchell, protected Clayton's widow, brought down a corrupt sheriff. He'd reconnected with his daughter, built a new family from the ashes of the old. He'd found purpose again, and maybe, just maybe, he'd found peace. The desert wind blew across his porch, cool now, the heat of the day fading. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new struggles. But tonight, Steele allowed himself to rest, to feel the weight of success instead of failure, to know that he'd done something good, something that mattered, and that was enough, more than enough. It was everything. 6 months later, Rosie's diner was packed. Saturday morning breakfast rush, families, couples, solo diners reading newspapers. The bell above the door chimed constantly. Rosie moved between tables with practiced ease, pouring coffee, taking orders, smiling. A real smile now, no shadows behind it. At the counter sat Steele. Same stool, same time, 6:52. But he wasn't alone. Kat sat beside him, in town for the weekend, making it a habit, coming to Dustville once a month, sometimes more. They were talking, laughing, making up for lost time. And then Kat was saying the patient woke up mid-surgery and asked if we could turn on the football game. "What did you do?" "Gave him more anesthesia and told him the Seahawks were winning." "Were they?" "I have no idea. I was elbow deep in his abdomen." "But it made him happy." Steele laughed, the sound foreign but getting easier. "Joy was a muscle. The more you used it, the stronger it got." Rosie appeared with a coffee pot, refilled both their cups. "You two want your usual?" she asked. "Please," Steele said. "Make mine extra crispy bacon," Kat added. "Dad says you make the best." Your dad's biased. Probably, but I trust him. Those words, simple, casual, but they meant everything. Rosie smiled and walked away. The bell chimed again. Deputy Carson Hayes walked in, the young deputy who'd let Steele escape the sheriff's station that night. He was wearing a new uniform, Dustville Sheriff's Department, but the badge was different. Sheriff Hayes now, appointed by the mayor after Collins's death, running unopposed in the next election, a good man in a position of power, the way it should be. He nodded to Steele. Steele nodded back. Mutual respect, the understanding between men who'd made hard choices for the right reasons. Outside, the desert sun climbed higher. Another hot day ahead. But inside the diner, there was coffee and conversation and the smell of bacon and toast. There was family, chosen in blood. There was community, healing and growing. There was peace, and in the corner booth, an old man and his daughter shared breakfast and stories and laughter, building bridges over years of silence, creating memories to replace the ones lost, finding their way back to each other, one conversation at a time. Marcus Steele Donovan had spent most of his life running, from responsibility, from consequences, from himself. But he'd finally stopped running, finally stood still long enough to heal, to love, to be loved in return. And in a small diner in a small town in the Arizona desert, surrounded by the people who mattered, he discovered something he'd been searching for his entire life. Home, not a place, but a feeling, the knowledge that you belong, that you're valued, that your presence matters, and that no matter how far you've fallen, no matter how badly you've failed, it's never too late to come back, to make things right, to keep your promises, to be the man you were meant to be. Steele looked at his daughter, at Rosie, at the diner full of people living their lives, and he was grateful for second chances, for forgiveness, for the opportunity to prove that change was possible, that redemption wasn't just a concept, it was real, and it was his. He'd earned it one hard choice at a time, one kept promise at a time, one step towards the light, and he would keep earning it for the rest of his life. Because that's what you do when you've been given grace. You honor it, you live up to it, you pay it forward. The bell above the door chimed, people came and went, life continued, and Marcus Steele Donovan sat at the counter of Rosie's diner drinking terrible coffee and eating perfect eggs surrounded by family and peace and purpose. Finally home, finally whole, finally free.